Welcome to The Buck Stops Here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, The Buck, Kirk Buchner, aka the owner of NotInHallOfFame.com and its sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're doing part 3 of our 8-part series where we're looking at those to consider for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I brought back with me, of course, the 19-year-old phenom, Vinny Lospinuso. Vinny he may only be 19, but he knows more about pro football history than probably all the people who actually vote on it combined. We talked about the AFC East today. So basically, as he likes to call it, New England Patriots and the three wicked stepsisters, or something to that effect. And he actually schooled me a lot about some old school Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills from the AFC days, a few people that I really wouldn't have considered, but he did. And it's actually a really good conversation, and I get to shit on Fireman Ed of the Jets. So here it is, part 3 of the 8-part series with Vinny. We take a look at those to consider for the Pro Football Hall of Fame from the AFC East. 2-1. Vinny, good to have you back, buddy.
Thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Captain Kirk.
You know I'm named after that, right?
What?
I'm actually named after that.
Oh, really? You are named after Kirk from Star Trek.
I am.
That's pretty cool.
No, it's really not. It's a sad reality of my life.
It was named after my grandfather. Well, my dad was also called Vinny, but my middle name is my middle name is my grandfather's middle name, James. But he was called Jim all the time. That's why.
No, my older brother actually named me, and my dad, he drinks a lot, much like I do, and he said, what the hell, just shut up. And that's how I got my name. That's actually a true story.
Well, that's actually a normal name. It's not like the names that Kim Kardashian or Kanye West named their children.
I don't know. I don't even mind Northwest so much. I have a bigger problem with Gwyneth Paltrow's child, Apple. That one bothers me more. I don't know why. It just does.
But then again, Gwyneth Paltrow was probably high on all that goop stuff anyway.
Or something. Well, wasn't her husband the guy from Coldplay? That's another reason just to hate it right away. But that's another story for another time. Chris Martin. Yeah, Apple. Yeah, right there. That's all I need to hate anyone is just if they like Coldplay. But that's another story for another time. We're looking at the AFC East. I'm excited about that because that's actually the first division where I think we've got something kind of mutually in common. You living in the New York area, and I used to live in the Toronto/Buffalo area for years. So I've been to many a Bills game. The AFC East, I understand all the hatred within that division. Not every division has that. I think when we get to
the most intense ones, I would definitely say are, in terms of the entire division hitting each other, I think the only two that are higher are the NFC North and, of course, the NFC East.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe the AFC North, too, when we get to that.
Oh, yeah, I almost forgot about that. Of course, the AFC North. I'm sorry, AFC South. You have no chance.
So, and we just sort of like a little bit of clarity here too. This is actually our second try at this. Our first one, we weren't able to complete it. And Vinny, you schooled me a lot when we were talking about the Buffalo Bills. You were giving me a bunch of names that I never would have thought of, because beyond Steve Tasker and maybe Reuben Brown, who I always thought was a bit fringe, you had like 3 other guys. But let's just talk about Tasker and Brown first. What do you think?
Tasker should be in. Tasker is the best special teamer of all time. Tasker did things in the game that you can't do anymore. Mm-hmm. Tasker was also listed on the NFL Network's. He was ranked number 9, from my understanding, in terms of greatest players not in the Hall of Fame. And when you think of Steve Tasker, Chris Kluwe, who was the former punter for the Vikings, and he's kind of I have mixed feelings on him as a person. But one thing I always did like about him was that he was very, very passionate about the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. As we know, one time in 2012, when there was a Pro Football Hall of Fame patch that the players wore, he had a post note that it said "Vote Ray Guy," and sure enough, just 1 year later, he was chosen as a nominee, and soon he became a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But there's only one position left. Actually, there's two. There's long snapper, but no one cares. But as for teams themselves, yeah, I think he's the best special teamer of all time. In terms of that mindset, easily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no question in my mind, easily. And in terms of Bills fans, that's usually the guy that they talk about the most.
100%. 100%. That's always their go-to.
But actually, unlike the other two guys, unlike the other two modern era Bills, Tasker actually was a semifinalist several times. 1, 2, 3, 4. He was a semifinalist 6 times, but has not been a semifinalist in like the last 7 years. So that's as far as he got up. He so far has never gone farther than semifinalist, and he hasn't been semifinalist for the last several years.
I think the changing game doesn't do him any favors either.
Oh, yeah, but at the same time, I look at it this way. Safeties were a glaring issue that the Hall of Fame didn't have for a while. And we live in an era where you have a lot of online people that oftentimes always complain about safeties and whatnot and how they're not as tough as they used to be. And, of course, you have Richard Sherman, even though I know he's not a safety, but he's always very outspoken and stuff like that. And you've been seeing a bit of a fever pitch with it. And sure enough, starting in 2017, 2017, you started seeing Kenny Easley make it. Then you saw Brian Dawkins made it. This year, we saw both. This year, we saw both Ed Reed and Johnny Robinson make it. And next year, we're most likely going to get Troy Polamalu in first ballot. And even more so, John Lynch has been on the ballot, and he's been a finalist for 6 times now.
Yeah, so, there's also Rondé, too.
Oh, Rondé, too. No, Rondé's a corner, though. But Leroy Butler and, of course, Steve Atwater. Those two guys, especially Atwater, is very requested by the fans. Because they just do, especially with Atwater. I mean, if we remember in part 1, Broncos fans literally browbeat people in terms of how much they want Atwater. That's how much they want him in. And right here, it's a similar situation where people are complaining about, the kickoff is going to be changing. So, in a sense, people are using that frustration and saying, don't forget about this. Let's put in a guy like Steve Tasker. And sure enough, many Bills fans are doing that. And right now it's been working well. And I still want Steve Tasker, but although I do think Bills fans need to be more vocal about it, because I think that a lot of Bills fans, they're kind of a little bit more quiet on the issue, because you have the extremes like the Broncos and the Raiders fans who won't shut up. And then you have the other extreme, which is they don't talk about it at all. And so the Bills, I see them more in that section, as they're not really mentioning it that much. And then they do like 1 or 2 guys in that.
But, Vinny, to their defense, though, I mean, like when Andre Reed was waiting what seemed like forever, they were pretty open and vocal about that. And it's a lot easier to sort of like jump behind a wide receiver than a special teamer.
Yes, it is easier. But just because it's easier to do doesn't mean it's impossible. Hell, the Broncos fans were pushing to get an owner in. I understand owners are a big position, but we all know that owners aren't really seen in always the most brightest light by fans.
Mm-hmm.
But for Pat Bowlen, it was shown differently, because I think because of his nature, he was a little more softer spoken. He was a little bit more on the background kind of guy. He wasn't really in your face. He was more chilling behind the scenes, and fans like that because they saw it as a more quieter presence. And I know for a special teamer, it's not the biggest hurrah, but I guarantee you that when David Hester comes available, I guarantee you that Bears fans are going to be very, very vocal about wanting him in. So I understand the Bears are a much, much bigger team with a much larger fan base, but I'd argue that Bills fans, even though they're smaller, they're probably just as passionate, if not even more so. I don't know. Have you seen the parking lots of Bills games? There you know.
Well, I've been in far too many parking lots of Bills games, and I've reached the point in my age in my mid-40s, I don't need to go do that again. But that's another story for another time.
Oh yeah, they break the tables like it's like I say, man. I can understand, man. But what? Geez, those Bills fans, there's something special. I don't know if they have too much chicken wing meat up in their brains. I don't know, or maybe it's because too many. I don't know. Maybe too many slams on the table, kind of like reworks their brain. I have no idea. It's something. It's something that gets them to do that, or maybe it's just the years of suffering they have to do. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of that because it's a tough city. Buffalo, and we were talking a bit about that before. I mean, like here's a city that has won nothing ever.
No, that's not true.
That's not true. But they don't think of it that way. And I know where you're going with that and that sort of segues perfectly into some of the other people you're going to mention. Yes, they're two-time AFL champions. They don't celebrate that there. They should, the championship. Sure, but they won't. They won't. You know what it reminds me of? When because we talk about how I was a Nordique fan as a kid. Quebec City is they're at is it one time or two time? I forget. But they were at a WHA champion. It doesn't mean the same thing. It's like Indianapolis. Okay, they won the ABA title a bunch of times. Not the same. It's just not the same thing.
That's kind of why people have that like mixed feelings on like the AFL, because unlike the ABA, where people and like historians are more like accepting and knowing that ABA history is NBA history, AFL history is NFL history. But the reason as to why I think people kind of downplay it as much is because they emphasize the Super Bowl so much. But the question I have is, the NFL is celebrating its 100th season. What the hell do you think they were? What the hell do you think their championship was for their first 46 years?
I agree with you, Vinny, and we've talked about that. But you've got a few people that I want to hear you bring up from the AFL days who certainly deserve a look from the Hall of Fame, and they're not going to be touted by the people of Buffalo mainly because of when they played. It's just not a part of their history that they want to acknowledge. So who are some people from the AFL days that really should be looked at?
Well, before I say that, I would say I understand it's not the same, but at the same time, I look at it as it's kind of ignorant of a lot of people not to understand that history. And I think it kind of leads to a situation almost like where I am, in which, listen, there's several people that have played long before the merger even happened that I want, and no one knows who they are. So I feel like as a person, if no one else is going to mention them, then it has to be me. Because, I have all this information right in front of me, and I'm going to do it. I don't care what they say. And the Kemps and the Bills, if Bills fans are going to do it, aren't going to push for these guys, then I should. And honestly, I think it makes me kind of question how much they care about the history of the team and whatnot, or how much they care about the team themselves, but I don't know. It's just that sort of issue they have. So when it comes to the AFL Bills, the Bills were one of the better teams during the AFL era. Honestly, I would say they were the second best team in the AFL other than the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. They won 2 AFL champions, not personally. They did, and they had a lot of stars. In fact, outside the Chiefs, the Bills had the second most amount of players on the AFL all-time team. However, they only have one player on the all-time team that is in the Hall of Fame, and that's their guard, Billy Shaw, who played during the 60s. He is the only guy in a string of a number of former Bills players that definitely deserve a very serious look that's not in yet. But I think I'm going to start with the very biggest one. You look at George Sames, for instance. George Sames was a safety for the Bills during that era. He won the championships in 64 and 65. He had his career-high 6 interceptions in all of his All-Star game appearances. I don't know if that doesn't mean anything, but it's something. But, for instance, Larry Felser, who works for the Pro Football Writers Association, called him the finest open field tackler in the league. In terms of awards that he got, like I said, the AFL championship, but he was also on the AFL All-Star, which is the same as a Pro Bowl 5 times. He was also on the All-AFL team 5 times as well. He's in the Buffalo Bills Hall of Fame. But, shockingly, he is not part of the Hall of Very Good.
Really?
Yeah, this is very, very surprising to me because this is a guy outside of Johnny Robinson who's on the first team of the AFL all-time team. And shockingly, he's not on the very good list yet, which is a little bit surprising. But I think because, it seems, considering that safeties are being kind of pushed a little bit more, I think a guy like him, after Robinson, I would go right to either him. I would go straight to him. I would go absolutely straight to him because, he won the 2 AFL championships. He was one of the best open field tacklers in that area. In fact, he was arguably the best one. Granted, he didn't have the interceptions like Robinson, but he was one of the guys that was preventing others from preventing the football. And sometimes those people could be a little bit more beneficial than just an interception guy.
Oh, 100%.
Not saying interceptions aren't important, but...
Well, there's a lot of people out there who are allowing those interceptions to happen that don't get that tick on the box score.
And with me, I'd say I care. It's the same thing with sacks. I look at sacks very much, but I know that's not the whole issue. I also know that tackles are important. I know that pressure are important. I know that fumbles are important. It's the same thing with defensive backs. Interceptions are not the only thing that matters. And this is not me coming from this is not an elitist point of view. This is just an objective, fact-based point of view.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree with you. There's a lot of intangibles.
What? Is that one more time?
No, just there's a lot of intangibles in the game of pro football, things that just don't appear on a stat sheet, that more in football than any other sport.
Luckily, we have pro football, but at least we have pro football focus for this because they're I think they were on the field along with Football Outsiders, the very hard analytics kind of guys that know that.
Yeah, but very few do.
Yes, that's why I love them so much. Obviously, PFF and Outsiders always said, oh, you don't see the game, you don't understand how things work. What's funny about that is that the people that look like nerds are not the nerds. The people who don't look like nerds, who are the nerds. They're the math nerds.
As a Star Wars geek, that's what I've been telling people all my life, and it's kind of coming into fruition now. But that's another story for another time and another podcast for another day. You got a couple other AFL guys.
Yes, there is. There's Tom Zack, who also died. Who died in 1987. So you don't really have that. The downside of that is you don't have that avenue to really say that you're deserving because, like George saying, you're deceased. And then with Seth Zack's case, he's been gone for over 3 decades now. In terms of his accolades, he was also part of both championship teams, was a 4-time AFL All-Star, as well as a 6-time All-AFL. The same thing that happens to me is I believe and I consider if you are part of the All-Pro team and if you don't make a Pro Bowl, I consider that a de facto Pro Bowl. I consider that as a de facto Pro Bowl, essentially. Mm-hmm. And as a defensive tackle, there was only his teammates. They was always known for always being very, very tough. Even when he had 3 broken ribs in a season, and he had massive knee problems, he still played. He still played like hell all the time. When there was massive injury issues, he was still tough. He was still aggressive. In fact, he's only one of 6 professional defensive linemen who are unanimously all-league selections for 3 or more years. The other ones were Bob Lilly, Hall of Famer, Merlin Olsen, Hall of Famer, Gino Marchetti, who just recently died, Hall of Famer, Willie Davis, who, from my understanding, I think he's also a Hall of Famer, and Deacon Jones. Just think about that for a second. Just really think about it. He, out of all these other guys, Lilly, Olsen, Davis, Marchetti, and Jones, all of them are Hall of Famers. The only one who isn't out of that list is Seth Zack.
And it's a shame. It's a shame because, I mean, like he could very well easily be in that list. But then he never appeared in a Brady Bunch episode like Deacon did.
The also downside of Seth Zack is that because of his injury issues, I mentioned 62 to 68. He only played 7 seasons. And he was this incredibly dominant, which I absolutely admire. I absolutely admire that to the fullest extent.
That's probably good enough for Tony Baselli.
Oh, yeah. And unlike Thames, due to his accolades, the Football Researchers' Association named him to the Hall of Very Good, class of 2011. And luckily now, with players like Easley getting in, and Terrell Davis getting in, and soon Tony Baselli will make it, I'm very happy that more people are coming around and appreciating the guys that have very dominant but yet short careers. There's a couple other guys I'll mention a bit later that have this similar issue. And I mentioned Sims first because he was another guy who was on mine, but Sestak, in terms of bills, he is easily my most wanted. I mean, if you are on this list with all these other Hall of Famers and you're the only guy not in the Hall of Fame, there's a bit of an issue there.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a pretty valid point. Do you have anyone else from the AFL you want to mention before we move on?
There are 2 others. Cookie Gilchrist.
Yep.
Gilchrist. He was an AFL MVP in 62, as well as the AFL rushing champion in 62 and 64, as well as the rushing touchdown leaders from 62 to 65. And he was also an AFL All-Star for 4 times. But honestly, if you win the MVP and led the league in touchdowns 4 times and led the league in rushing 2 times, who cares? Who cares? I mean, I believe the reason as to why he's not in, he is in the Hall of Very Good of 2013, but the reason as to why he didn't make it is because 2 reasons. One is because he also spent a lot of his career also in the CFL. Another reason is because, when I've heard, he had a lot of feuds with people. He had a lot of feuds with like some of his teammates. He he was one of those character guys.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really do want him. Like, not as much as Setback, but because of that, I feel like he's a little wronged, and also he got CTE, so it makes me have a lot of sympathy for the man, which is understandable.
That actually works against him, though, because that's something that they'll mention, and they kind of want to distance themselves as much as they can from that, although that's really hard to do. It's CTE and football is essentially, it's like hand in a glove.
They literally are. You can't. Honestly, I think it'd be better if you honor it, because it makes you realize, hey, this guy literally played so hard and he cared so much that he was willing to injure himself over it. And in a way, you can find that as admirable. I mean, obviously, the message is not, oh, go hurt yourself. No. It just shows that people are willing to do anything to be a successful player. That's what it shows. Yeah. That's why I think having someone who had CTE, like Gilchrist, make the Hall of Fame. But then again, also Mike Webster. As we all know, Mike Webster, we all know how he died. It's the greatest of all time. That guy was basically half his brain essentially wasn't working. He was messed up in the head, and I understand he was already in the Hall of Fame, but we have so many guys in the Hall of Fame that already have CTE, and with Gilchrist, considering that he has been wronged in the past, it would be smart to take this opportunity to do it.
And you got one more guy.
The only downside is that the other running backs in the AFL all-time team, Paul Lowe, Clem Daniels, and Abner Hayes, three guys that I really, really want, they're not in yet either. And I think they would want to go with Daniels first because he led the AFL all-time in rushing. Also, he just died recently. So there's also that, too, where it's kind of recent, and I do really feel bad for him. And I say to myself, man, if only Raiders fans would talk about him more than Phil Villapiano. Yeah, I'm not letting that go. Like,
no,
I understand
I don't blame you.
And, Villapiano did play for the Bills, so I guess you can say that works here. there's a push going on, but, it comes to the fact that you can have a push for anything, but you need to have you need to have a lot of other stuff as well. Okay. And there's other guys too, like there's Butch Bird and there's Jack Kemp, but I wouldn't focus on them. At least I would focus on Setback and Thames. Okay. Setback is the two S's, and then Gilchrist, and then if Hadel is in, and if even LaMonica is in, I would think about Kemp, but I'm not even thinking about those right now.
All right, so
that's with the ASL era for the Bills. Now I want to talk about the modern era.
All right.
We talked about Tasker, and we want to talk about Brown.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell everyone about why Reuben Brown has a better Hall of Fame resume than most people are even remotely aware.
Reuben Brown played between 1995 to 2007. Because of that reason, that is why he is not on the All-Decade team. Because he didn't choose to be ready for 1995, and he didn't choose. Well, he kind of had to retire by that time because he was getting up there in age. But in a similar situation with Jeff Saturday, in which he had a great career, but the reason as to why he doesn't have an All-Decade team to prove it is because of when he was drafted. And also with Brown, it's even a worse kind of situation because he was literally drafted in the middle of the decade of the 90s, in the middle of the decade in the 2000s. There's another guy that I'm going to talk about in a little bit that has the same exact situation for another team in the AFC East. But with Reuben Brown, he was drafted a couple years after the Bills had the 4 Super Bowl appearances, all of them losses, but they still made 4 straight Super Bowls, which is something to be quite admired for, which I think it really is impressive. For Reuben Brown, I know that people want to hate on Pro Bowls, but the fact of the matter is the people that hate on Pro Bowls are the ones that care about it the most. And the reason as to why they care about Pro Bowls is because people who may not understand the main stats, for instance, or will watch them play or whatnot, they're just going to look at Pro Bowl and All-Pro, and that's it. And with Brown, it's a more difficult situation because he's an offensive lineman. He's a guard. And guard is in a situation where it took forever for Jerry Kramer to make it. There's another guy I'm going to mention, another guard, who really deserved it. I'm very passionate about him. Reuben Brown is in that situation where not many people are talking about because of the position. And hell, if Raiders fans can't even mention Steve Wisniewski, how can you expect Bills fans to mention Reuben Brown?
He's one of those important cogs that get forgotten on some very good teams.
Brown was a great player. He was truly a great player. He is one of the few players that has 9 or more Pro Bowls, and is not in the Hall of Fame. The only few other guys that are not like that, whether they're upcoming or active, Reuben Brown's one of the very few. The only ones that aren't are John Lynch, who will make it soon, Faneca, who will make it soon, Trier, who might never make it in, another guy I'll mention in a bit when we get to the Jets, and Maxie Bond. Brown is in elite company. He is in very elite company. But a downside with him is that even though he made 4 All-Pros, all of them are in the second team. He never made a first-team All-Pro. And honestly, I think that's a bit of a shame because even though the first-team All-Pro is important, considering there were many great guards during that era, like we mentioned, Steve Wisniewski before, like Randall McDaniel, he was also very, very big during that era. And Larry Allen, that's another guy. When it came to Reuben Brown, because of that, he's kind of forgotten. I think it's a damn shame. But I don't want that to happen. I really don't want that to happen to him.
It's going to be hard because he's not even talked about in Buffalo like he should be.
No, he really needs to be talked about. And I really do feel bad for the guy because this is the guy I really want in. Mm-hmm. This is the guy I really want in because he was in an unfortunate circumstance and he made the best of it. when he was with the Bears, he had a bit of a renaissance, and he helped lead the Bears to their second Super Bowl appearance. Something to be admired about.
There's nothing more accurate than saying unfortunate circumstance and being stuck in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Buffalo itself is an unfortunate circumstance in itself.
Yes, it is.
But at least But I do love Buffalo wings.
Yeah,
I do love Buffalo wings.
I still don't even know if that's actually where that comes from. I don't know how that sort of is it. Like I never understood how that city sort of became famous with chicken wings. But I guess you got to come up with something.
Well, yeah, everyone has that sort of thing. But there is, in terms of modern Bills that aren't active, the only other guy that I can see is Cornelius Bennett. Mm-hmm. What do you think of him?
I think he's a fringe guy. He had a really good career. I don't know that you can very well make the case that Buffalo does not go to 4 Super Bowls without him. So there's a definite case there. But I honestly think, and whether that's right or wrong, and I think wrong, that the Hall of Fame probably thinks, okay, you know what, we've got enough of these Buffalo Bills from that era that are in.
That's why it took so long for Jerry Kramer, and I think that mentality. There's 2 mentalities I hate. I hate the ones that say you weren't on a team that was successful, you have no chance. Or the situation is, oh, you were on a team that was successful, you don't have a chance. I hate both of those because I feel like, listen, if you were a great player on a great team, I don't give a damn how many other players were on there. You deserve to deserve to be heard. Look at the Celtics. You don't have this for the NBA. You don't have this for the Basketball Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. You know why there's so many Celtics? Because they were a great team. They had so many elite players, and they deserve to have that amount.
I think there was something else going on there with Kramer, but I agree with you.
Kramer, that was stupid. Also, not even him, Dave Robinson as well.
Yeah. Well, there's
Robinson
a lot.
Was waiting a long time. Not as infamously as Kramer, but he waited a long time as well. And for Bennett, it's the same situation with Tasker. Like, he played on successful Bills teams, and none of them won the Super Bowl. But actually, with Bennett, it's even a worse situation because he went to 5 Super Bowls and lost all 5. The other one was when he was with the Falcons, where they lost to the Broncos. But
what did we call him? The inverse Charles Haley.
They literally are. He literally is the inverse Charles Haley.
Yeah, the only thing is, I don't think Cornelius Bennett sort of like made everyone look at his dick like Charles Haley did, but that's another story.
Oh, speaking of that, there's this YouTuber that's getting news because of that, and there are these YouTubers but that's besides the point. But for Bennett, even though I do want him, and I do have that passion, but not as much as Tasker and Brown, because Tasker is in that situation where he's a special teamer, and with Brown, it's the fact that he was kind of ignored during that time, and that's why I feel like he's the underdog. Bennett, I feel bad because he went to 5 Super Bowls and was a loser of all 5. It's that, and because the Bills' defense was also really, really, really damn good in this era, and it wasn't just because of Bruce Smith. I mean, obviously, Bruce Smith's one of the greatest defensive players of all time. He obviously the sack leader, 200 for a reason, but the linebacker is considered the quarterback of the defense. And Cornelius Bennett, as the linebacker, you can say, was in that quarterback kind of role. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, made the first team All-Pro 3 times, and was AFC Defensive Player of the Year twice, in 88 and 91. Part of the Bills' 50th anniversary team, and of course, like we said, part of the 1990s All-Decade team. And Bennett himself, very humble guy. You really do feel bad for him in a sense. And Roger Vick, who was the Jets' fullback during 1988, said, LT's in a class by itself, then Tippett, and then Bennett right behind him.
Who do you think's got a better shot, Bennett or Brown? I would say Bennett.
Bennett, because Steve Wisniewski's not in, yes. And that's because Wisniewski's part of the All-Decade team and he's not in. And I feel like until Wisniewski's in, if Raiders fans could actually mention his name for once, Brown's going to wait a little while, and I really do feel bad for Brown. That's why I have like a lot of like caring for him, because he didn't choose to be born in that era. He didn't choose to why should we punish players for that? He didn't choose that.
The middle redheaded stepchild. There's the words I'm looking for. All right, so let's travel south to Buffalo's hated rival, Miami.
No, not yet.
Oh, what do you mean not yet? Who you got? Who you got?
2 running backs are active.
Marshawn?
Don't want to forget about these 2 guys.
You're talking about
Marshawn I've listed as a Seahawk. I'm talking about active guys.
Okay. Who you got?
You know how much I wanted Rosenbluth.
Yeah.
You know how much I want some of these guys, but I love Frank Gore. I love Frank Gore. There's something about him. Yes, he may only have 5 Pro Bowls and may have a second-team All-Pro, but he also won the Art Rooney Award. Shows how great of a sportsmanship he was. He's 4th all-time in rushing. 4th all-time in rushing. 4th all-time in rushing. I hate to break it to you. 4th all-time in rushing. In fact, he's had many seasons, I think like 13 seasons around there, where he has 1,000 or more rushing yards. In fact, there's a couple of seasons in 2015 and 2017 where he could have gone 1,000 again. So we're still looking at a situation where he would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 seasons. He could have had he's very close. He was very close to having 11 seasons of 1,000 or more rushing yards. Just think about that for a second. And this guy, Frank Gore, is 30. The guy's going to be 36 on the 14th. And he's playing better than some players that are 26 years old.
That's very true. Very true.
And I want him in because of that. Because, he was never seen as like a top 5 guy, but he was always right in the mix, the top 10, and durability. Sometimes it's the game of nutrition. And Frank Gore has surpassed the odds, even in college, where people were wondering, could this guy play? I don't know. He's coming off a bad knee injury. The answer is simple. He's going to be 36, and he's still playing as a running back.
Yeah, Gore can move up a couple more spots. He's still not getting in first ballot.
No, he's not getting first ballot. I don't see him getting first ballot at all. I see him not getting until at least 3rd or 4th. At most, I don't see him going farther than 7th.
Which is 7th, usually where he's drafted in fantasy football.
Yes. Yes, it is, but he does make the best of it.
All right, so who's your other guy?
Shady. Sean McCoy.
Okay. All right.
Sean McCoy.
He's a ways away from being discussed, don't you think?
A little bit. I mean, that's why he's not as big for me as Frank Gore. Frank Gore, easily in my eyes, definitely a Hall of Famer. Sean McCoy is a bit of a more interesting situation because he did the league in rushing yards once, as well as lead the league in touchdowns once, and was a 6-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time first-team All-Pro. But to compare it to some other guys for rushing yards, he takes a little bit while. Like, in front of him is Ricky Watters, who there is a bit of a push. I will talk about him a bit, but not as much. Warwick Dunn's not getting in. He's kind of in that situation with Fred. He's kind of in that situation with Fred Taylor and maybe Steven Jackson. But I do think if he has a couple more years with just 2 more, if he gets 2,000 more yards, I think he'll make it. But right now, he is 10,606. He didn't make the Pro Bowl last year. He also didn't lead his team in rushing. Josh Allen did, of all people.
He might again.
That's why I think it's a bit concerning. That's why I think that's the biggest roadblock for him. It's just like his age getting up there. Now I say that about LaShawn McCoy, and I don't say about that Frank Gore. but I really do wonder if age is kind of getting up to him. But I am rooting for him, though.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as Frank Gore, but I am rooting for him.
Well, I wrote off Adrian Peterson a year ago, and I've been eating some crow on that one, so you just never know.
If you think I'm not going to mention Adrian Peterson when we get there...
Oh, I know you are. As you should. As absolutely you should. I'm just eating a bit of crow that sometimes people just defy the odds.
And as we know, Frank Gore, he has, and I think LaShawn McCoy can as well.
Okay.
And that's it with the Buffalo Bills. By the way, if you're curious, no, it's too early for Josh Allen.
Josh Allen. Sure. Yeah. He's right up there with Rob Johnson and Doug Flutie.
Yes. Now, I think that's it with the Bills.
All right, so then let's continue alphabetically. We'll go to Miami. I got one big name that I'm pretty big on. I want to see if you sort of agree with that one. For me, my biggest Dolphin that really should be in already is Bob Guttenberg.
Yes. Absolutely, yes. Bob Guttenberg, I'm going to say it right now, he's my most wanted guard. He is easily my most wanted guard. He was on every single one of the Dolphins' Super Bowl teams. Mm-hmm. Whether they won or they lost, he was still there. Everyone went to 5 Super Bowls. Super Bowl 6, Super Bowl 7, Super Bowl 8. I think it was also Super Bowl, which one was it? He went to the one against the Cowboys he went to, and the one against the Redskins, both of them against the Redskins, the one against the Vikings, and, I'm forgetting that last one. Which one was it? The other one against the Redskins. Both ones against the Redskins, the one against the Vikings, the one against the Cowboys, and the one against the 49ers. He was there for every single one of them. In fact, his career started off with a Super Bowl appearance, and it ended with a Super Bowl appearance. He is part of the fabric of the Miami Dolphins. He is easily part of that fabric. He was part of the undefeated season, the only undefeated season since the modern era,
mm-hmm.
and 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 1-time second-team All-Pro. But with something like this, I would ignore that. Instead, I would look at this. He was a finalist 9 times.
Exactly. So you're talking about a guy who's definitely been on their radar, and now he's not. It throws me off completely.
The thing that makes me the most sad is he died not so long ago. He died back in January. Mm-hmm. And people in CBS saying, shame on you, all of you. You should all be ashamed of yourself for letting this guy, because there were instances with the guy literally where many times the guy cried himself to sleep, and honestly, he probably died with that in his thinking, just saying it's like the sense of him saying they didn't care. They knew I was there, but they didn't want to give it to me. And honestly, that makes me the most sad. And I also reached out to his granddaughter. She was upset as well.
No doubt.
I spoke to Kevin Noble, the guy from SB Nation. He's mad because he knows those Dolphin teams are some of the greatest teams in league history. And with Guttenberg and a couple other guys, he feels that's just unacceptable. Because it's a situation of feeling like, the Dolphins been average. Come on, just give it something to us. Something that we can be excited about, because we're not going to be excited about. I hope Josh Rosen's going to be good. I'm rooting for the guy, but they're expected to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. They've been painfully average for way too long. They need something to be excited about. And what better way to do it than give the man who deserves it the most what he deserves?
Yeah, and it's be a long time coming. And sadly, as you said, he's not going to be around to see it. And there's so much history that has been ignored. One thing that I've always thought they should do, even though I'm not a huge fan of a lot of what the Basketball Hall of Fame does, they have a lot more direct elect committees than any others. So like they used
that's
to have.
That's what I love about that. That's what I absolutely love about the best. The reason why that's my favorite is because they accept history. They respect history the most. They respect history the most. That's what I absolutely love about it.
I mean,
and I also like how
so there
a little
certainly
bit larger.
Could be like an AFL committee, a pre-Super Bowl era committee, an early.
The article that's pinned to my Twitter page has me saying that same exact kind of idea. On my Twitter, I actually have an article that I did with Clark Judge, who's one of the voters for the Hall of Fame. He liked my ideas, and he posted it.
And maybe one day they'll do that, but I mean, they're not exactly known for their sense of change. Let's say the Pro Football Hall of Fame, anyway.
Now that fans are getting more vocal than ever, now that players are getting more vocal, change is afoot. Change, I think, is going to happen much sooner than people realize. Now, granted, one could say that's just delusions of grandeur for me. Fair enough. But at the same time, someone like me, who is so passionate on an issue like this, with me, I don't care about tradition. Things need to change.
Love it.
And I think...
All right, so
who else?
Yeah, no, who else do you have in Miami? Because, like, for me, it's almost Guttenberg, and then anyone else is, like, so far down on the Dolphin food chain.
Safety times 2. Jake Scott and Dick Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Scott, one person I know is a huge Dolphins fan, and he said, after Guttenberg, right to Scott. Jake Scott, absolutely, he said he wanted Jake Scott right after Guttenberg, and it was a very, very close one. Jake Scott was a safety who actually wore 13, by the way. Obviously, no one's going to wear that number now, but not because of Scott, it's because of Marino. He won Super Bowl MVP as a safety. He was also a return specialist and a punt returner as well. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler and won both those Super Bowls. And he was a 5-time All-Pro. And also, from my understanding, he is also part of the Hall of Very Good as well.
Just when you were making that sigh, I already knew where you were going. I love it.
I mean, I don't know exactly which year he made it, because I don't remember the exact year, but I know that right after Guttenberg, they did have Jake Scott. And, I mean, I want to, because safeties are being a little more emphasized, just like George Sames, I think Jake Scott really, definitely, considering the fact that his career only lasted, he was in the CFL, so he was there for 10 seasons, one in the CFL, the other 9 in the NFL. He only played for 9 seasons, and he made the absolute best of it. He made the absolute best of it. This guy was... Oh, yeah, he made it in 2007, I believe. Also, he has a couple Super Bowl records, but I'm not going to focus that much on Super Bowl records because, you know, Timmy Smith had the Super Bowl record for rushing yards, but he wasn't anything after that game. Currently, he's an investor, right? He's a accounting investor in Hawaii. But with me, I don't know. I want Jake Scott, but not until Guttenberg gets in. Not before Guttenberg.
Anyone else in Miami that you're looking at?
Dick Anderson, the other safety. Dick Anderson, unlike Scott, has been on an AFL, an NFL all-decade team, specifically the one in the 1970s. He was a 3-time Pro Bowler as well as a 3-time All-Pro, and he was an NFL Defensive Player of the Year in '73, where he also led the league in interceptions. The problem with Anderson is that even though he was also an original Dolphin, so he was there for 10 seasons, but he was one of the very first guys there. He was there since 1968. The problem with it, he's one of the early ones, back in the AFL, the problem with him is not because of him, it's because they're going to emphasize one safety before him, and that's going to be Cliff Harris from the Cowboys, who has been a finalist in the past. And I feel like they're not going to go to Scott or Anderson until Harris is in. And once we talk about the Cowboys, there's even a couple Cowboys that are more requested than him. So, honestly, because of the no-name defense, yeah. Also, another interesting situation. He was also part of the Players Union. He was part of the Players Association from 75 until 77.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, that's actually a pretty interesting statistic.
You think that helps or hurts?
Oh, I would definitely help because it makes people think, oh, he's more accepting. They're more accepting to the players. They're willing to listen to the players. It would seem like that from the outside looking in. Obviously, with me, I'm not that kind of guy, but I know that many others are. And the optics of it could look good from their angle, because it'd say like you're getting a guy that was with the players, and they would see it like that. Now that's old Dolphins. What about modern Dolphins? Well, it's an easy one for me. Zack Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Yep, big one.
Zack Thomas. Zack Thomas. Zack Thomas. Now, why am I keep saying his name? Because this guy has finally, after waiting a little while, finally made it as a semifinalist. I don't know why it took so long. I don't know why it took his 6th year of eligibility to be a semifinalist, but he did. I mean, I didn't expect Jason Taylor to be on the first ballot, but I also didn't expect Zack Thomas to wait this long to finally be a semifinalist. In terms of what he did, 7-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All-Pro, AFC Defensive Rookie of the Year. Also, he was named the best linebacker of the year in 1998 and in 2006. And he was also part of the All-Decade team. And down on the other side is that he was also, in terms of Pro Bowl for 1998, he wasn't listed. He was an All-Pro, but he wasn't a Pro Bowl. But like I said, if you're an All-Pro but not a Pro Bowl, you're sent. I just consider that another Pro Bowl. It works the same way. And he is part of the All-Decade team. The other two guys on the All-Decade team that are linebackers that are not in yet are DeMarcus Ware, who will make it first ballot, and Joey Porter, which we'll talk about him in the next part. Mm-hmm. But for Zack Thomas, he should be a finalist by now. I really think he should be a finalist by now.
And he very well might be in the next coming year. Yeah.
I'm rooting hard for him.
All right, so we good. We're good.
Also,
you got another one?
No, 2 more actually.
2 more, of course. What do you got?
No, actually, I take that back. 3 more. 3 more.
Cleo Lemon.
There is actually 3. What?
Cleo Lemon.
No. Richmond Webb.
Okay.
Richmond Webb.
Yep.
We live in a reality. Richmond Webb. Like that Dolphins fan I told you about, he thinks Richmond Webb should definitely be in there. I mean, he said that Dwight Stevenson's in there, which obviously he should, as he obviously is, because short career made it. It's the similar situation that I made with a Tom Sestak, except Sestak was a defensive tackle and Stevenson was a center. For Richmond Webb, he also made the All-Decade team. In fact, he's the only offensive tackle on the All-Decade team. Actually, he's the only one of 2. The other one's Boselli, but he's been the finalist 3 times. Webb has not been a finalist yet. In fact, from looks of it, he hasn't even been a semi-finalist yet. And I'm like saying, whoa, Richmond Webb is not? And yeah, he's not. But granted, it did take a while for Boselli to finally be a semi-finalist. So I guess Webb is in that same situation. But this is a guy who was a 7-time Pro Bowler as well as a 4-time All-Pro. After Boselli, Webb's the next guy up. That's how I see it. Now the question is, how come all he had was up to 1996? Well, it's not because he just decided to suck. It's because injuries derailed his career. But yet, despite that, he still had 118 consecutive starts. 118. As an offensive tackle, it's not as impressive as Joe Thomas and it's over 10,363 consecutive snaps. But for an offensive lineman, especially in an era which was a little bit more physical, come on, you got to commend it for that at least a little bit.
Oh, it's very impressive.
Unfortunately, as durability helped him out, injuries derailed it. As after he had his 118 consecutive starts, he his play began to decline due to said injuries, and that's probably why he doesn't have more than 7 Pro Bowls. But I didn't forget. I did not forget.
And who else we got?
Nor should I forget. And like I said, there's 2 more, but neither of these are players.
Oh, okay.
Joe Robbie.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
Kind of shocked that people don't really mention his name. I mean, I'm shocked that many people don't mention Kale Rosenblum's name. I'm also really shocked that people don't mention Joe Robbie's name. Now, granted, it's not as important as Rosenblum because Rosenblum was a guy who made the NFL what it is. But Robbie was a guy who, my understanding, he founded the Dolphins, and he helped make them become a successful championship pedigree team right out the gate. And the question is, who hired Don Shula? Joe Robbie. Who hired the guy that would lead to what the Dolphins became? It was Joe Robbie, who had his name plastered on Hard Rock Stadium, then called Joe Robbie Stadium. Joe Robbie.
I prefer Joe's granddaughter, Margot.
No, she's Australian.
Yeah, I know. Going
Robbie's from South Dakota.
South Dakota, South Australia, potato.
Yeah, that makes sense. Same thing. But it's for Joe Robbie. It's a little bit more difficult because unlike Rosenblum or Adams, it was more about helping the team out as opposed to the league. And even with Robert Kraft, he was very, very influential for the league. Robbie was very, very influential for the team. And because of how dominant the Dolphins were for that stretch when he was the owner, the answer is simple. Does his resume warrant a bust in Canton? Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. Not before Rosenblum or Adams, mind you, but it definitely deserves a very, very, very serious look.
So then who would be your other non-player for Miami?
What? Say that one more time?
Who's your other non-player for Miami?
This one's a bit of an oddball one, but I think it is something that we really need to look at. Bill Arnsparger. Now, you might be saying, who the hell is Bill Arnsparger?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Who is that? I'm not familiar with him.
Bill Arnsparger was the head of the no-name defense. He was the guy who was defensive coordinator for them.
Oh, okay.
For all these, he was with the Dolphins when they were run for those 3 straight Super Bowls with those 2. He also reached another one in '82. Though he was not as successful as a head coach for the Giants, when he was with the Giants, when he was with the Dolphins, the best defensive coordinator in the league. The no-name defense was one of the best defensive units in the league. And Arnsparger's no-name defense was a championship pedigree defense. He came out of retirement several years later, like 10 years later, to become the defensive coordinator for the San Diego Chargers, now called the Los Angeles Chargers, who he helped lead to the Super Bowl, where they got shellacked by Steve Young's arm. Now, you might be saying, why would I want a defensive coordinator in the Hall of Fame? Well, I'll tell you another reason. It's not like the head coach is the only guy that's part of the coaching staff. There's another guy I'm going to list after we talk about the Dolphins that I really want in. But for Arnsparger, the reason why I want him is because it's because I want to see more coordinators go in. I want to get these other coaches in. It's not the head coach. Yes, the head coach is the most important part, but it's not the only part. And because how influential Arnsparger was, he was an assistant head coach. He was literally the second. Because of how good Shula was, Arnsparger was literally his second in command. And like how you know how Tex Winter was for the Lakers?
Mm-hmm.
I think of it the same way for Arnsparger.
No, and I think you've made a really, really good case for that. And there's a lot of coordinators right now that I think people can sort of like point at in a sort of similar way. Even just sort of like in my sort of generation, like the Buddy Ryans of that. Not necessarily a great head coach, but like an elite defensive coordinator that really made a difference in how the game was thought. Even if you would just want to look, even if you just want to look at a current finalist all the time, Coryell. Like he wasn't the most successful coach, but his innovations are huge and critical to the game's evolution.
There's going to be more of these guys that are like Arnsbergers that I will mention in a bit. But funny enough, most of them are like in the NFC side, but I will not forget them. People do. I don't. I do not forget these guys. I don't. I don't know. I've always had a mad amount of respect for the ones that are not as talked about. I don't know. It's just this is how I am.
No, and there's something to that. It's. I think there's something kind of noble about. It's always easier to sort of go after the low hanging fruit. There's always a lot of hidden gems in everything, for sure.
Now that's it for South Beach. Let's go up to. Oh my gosh. Let's go up to the Northeast and go face to face with Satan. Let's go up to the Death Star and let's talk about the formerly Boston, now New England Patriots.
And first up is Matt Cassel.
No. The first one up is Malcolm Mitchell because Super Bowl heroic. But I joke about that, but there actually is a lot of players from the Patriots that deserve a serious look. Now, you might be saying, what are you talking about? The Patriots were bad for so long. Yes, true. But as great as this dynasty's been, it's not like it's just been Belichick and Brady. As great as they are, even the best need help as well. But I'm not going to talk about them first. I'm first going to talk about Mr. Patriots. I'm going to talk about Gino Cappelletti.
Okay, yeah. A great place to start.
Gino Cappelletti is the best place to start. In fact, he was so good that he was on the Hall of Very Good. First ever ballot, along with Jerry Kramer, Carl Eller, and Johnny Robinson, to name a few. The only three guys that are not on there are Cappelletti, Pat Fisher, and Al Webster, which I will mention, Webster with the Eagles. And I will mention Fisher and Webster, whatever his name is. I'm definitely going to mention those names. There's no question in my mind that I will mention their names. But Cappelletti, he was called Mr. Patriot for a reason. He was their first superstar. He won the AFL MVP in 1964. He had his number retired by the team as well. He was a 5-time All-Star as well as a 4-time second-team All-AFL. He was also a kicker as well. Yes, he was a kicker. He was a wide receiver and a kicker. But the downside of it is it's a little bit more cloudy for me, but I'm just looking at right now what Football Research Association have. His kicking and receiving accounted for 1,130 points, including 155 in 1964, as well as catching 260 passes in his 290 passes during that era. Cappelletti, in terms of bread and butter, in terms of Patriots themselves, you always need to start with Gino Cappelletti. He's called Mr. Patriot for a reason. He was the face of the franchise. You know how, Floyd Little was the franchise for the Broncos?
Yep.
Cappelletti was the franchise for the Patriots. He was called Mr. Patriot for a reason. In fact, he was part of the Patriots radio. He was their commentator when he retired up until July 2012.
That's true, yes.
He is ingrained with Patriots. When you think of old school Patriots, the first one that's always
Paul Revere.
When you think of always in your mind, it's always Cappelletti. Cappelletti is always the guy you start out with. The downside of him is that he was not on the AFL's all-time team. He wasn't. He was not. But honestly, his contributions, who cares? You're Mr. Patriot. You were the face of the team for an entire decade. You were the bread and butter of what the Patriots are today. This iconic team, the New England Patriots, their first star was him.
Yeah, no, and I can't disagree. That's a fantastic place to start, and a name that doesn't get sort of brandished about by a lot of newer Patriots fans. So it's sort of good that we're bringing him up.
There's actually some Patriots fans. They're having an entire people have actually gone on and they signed signatures for Gino Cappelletti in the Hall of Fame. They got several thousand right now, from what I've heard.
That's good.
They've been doing good because I'm happy at least they don't forget. I'm happy that some of them don't forget about Gino Cappelletti because. They forget about a couple of these guys, but they don't forget about Gino Cappelletti. Gino Cappelletti, like I said, he was the Patriots. That was his team, and I just look at it this way: he's also part of the Patriots Hall of Fame, which I will mention at the Patriots Hall of Fame right now. I think the way they have it, the best is probably the coolest Hall of Fame out of all the team Hall of Fames.
It's up there. It's among my top 5.
Say that one more time.
I was saying it's of my top 5 of the Big 4 of North American sports. St. Louis Cardinals. I love what they've been doing lately. They over the last few years, sort of they've really sort of embraced their history and their regular Hall of Fame. The Montreal Canadiens in hockey do a fantastic job. The Yankees with just everything that they've done, and the Green Bay Packers.
Oh, I think that's what fantastic was. And you're looking at teams historical teams like the St. Louis Cardinals, the Green Bay Packers, Montreal Canadiens, New York. Those are historical teams. The Patriots, in terms of history, until recently, were nothing like that. But they now they're now in that role.
Yeah, and that's that's what they should do. I know I'm segueing all over the place, but I was so happy when Carolina just announced they just added finally 4 people to their Hall of Honor after having 2 members from 1998.
And the Texans have them, but all they have is Andre Johnson, and that's it. Because I do think Brian Cushing will be a great addition there, but that's besides the point. There was another Patriot from the AFL that I would mention, but he doesn't come close to the level of, Cappelletti. But I do think he does definitely deserve a look, and that's John Morris. Now, who was John Morris? Well, he was a center. He was their unsung hero for most of the time. He was an All-Star or Pro Bowl 7 times, as well as the All-AFL. The downside of it is, he is part of the Patriots Hall of Fame. The downside of it is he's a center. But the good news is that there is already a center from the All-AFL team that's in the Hall of Fame. And you probably know him. It's Jim Otte, one of the greatest players in NFL history. John Morris is the guy on the second team. And granted, his career is not as good as Otto, but 7-time All-Star or 7-time Pro Bowler and a 6-time All-AFL. I think that's a pretty good other guy.
Absolutely. So then when you go from then the AFL, there's almost that whole giant lull of just not a whole lot of good news for New England.
The closest thing you have is Stanley Morgan. That's the closest thing you have, but there are some good things about Stanley Morgan, but there's another Patriots wide receiver I'm going to get to a bit that, because of his contributions, has more to it. But what I do think is interesting is that he had over 10,000 receiving yards, and he had a record for 19.2 yards per reception. 19.2 yards among all receivers with 500 receptions. 19.2 yards. So every single play that was given to him, 20 yards, 20 yards, 20 yards, 20 yards, 20 yards. He always came up. Patriots fans love him.
As they should. Should. I mean, he was one of the few reasons. He was one of the few things they had.
And Andre Tippett and John Hanna.
Mm-hmm.
And also Mike King.
I was actually a big fan of John Hanna as a kid.
They kept running. They ran the greatest guard ever. Greatest guard ever. No question. Greatest guard ever.
So were you happy when Ty Law got in, or were you hoping that was going to be Richard Seymour, or does it really matter to you?
I didn't think that Law would make it because I thought it would either be Law or I thought it was going to be a very, very intense sparring match, and thankfully both made it. But I thought it was a bit of a surprise that Richard Seymour made it in. Made it as a finalist. I didn't expect him. I actually thought that Mecklenburg would finally break out of the semifinals purgatory. He didn't. So Seymour, it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be a bit for him. I was surprised that he did make it. I was quite surprised he did make it as a finalist this year, and because of that, I think he will make it in several years from now, but not for quite a bit. I think it's going to be at least his 5th year of eligibility. I think it's going to wait until at least then. Granted, some voters love pass rushers. Why they just look at the pass rushers, I don't know. Maybe it's because the pass rush is important, but I wouldn't just focus on that. But Seymour was a bit of an unsung hero. He was actually the Patriots' first-round pick the year they won their first Super Bowl, and he was basically a linchpin of their defensive line. So I think Seymour's going to make it. He's going to make it in a few years. Another guy that I see Patriots fans mention, which I feel, it really comes down to one reason. Playoff sacks. And I'm talking about Willie Mcginest.
Interesting. He's not someone I really think of.
That's not someone I think of either, but someone that Patriots fans think of. Do I think of him? No, I don't think of him at all. But they look at one thing. They look at his impact as a leader for the Patriots, how he went 4 Super Bowls for them, and the postseason sacks. Now, do I think of him as someone who is worthy of the Hall of Fame? It's in that Villapiano situation where he doesn't have an All-Pro, and he only has 2 Pro Bowls, and the thing that fans have him going for is the fact that he has 16 postseason sacks, which is the most of all time. That's what they really hang on. That's what they hang on. In fact, also for Patriots, the reason as to why it's so big is because in the 2005 game against the Jaguars, he had 4.5 sacks. That's why. He surpassed, and he broke Bruce Smith's sack record in the playoffs, and they say because he had the record, he deserves to be there. Do I feel that way? No, I don't. It's a similar situation with Teddy Bruschi, where franchise player, yes. Hall of Famer, no.
Well, it's like after the Super Bowl, right, Vinny? How many, and pardon my language here, but how many fucking articles did I read that they said, well, Edelman's a Hall of Famer? Like, no, he's not.
No. I'm going to get to Edelman in a bit, but I'm talking about like the ones, the moderners that are on the ballot. But there is one more that I do want to mention that I do feel like Patriots fans, in fact, he actually just spoke just recently, not too long ago, because he made the Patriots Hall of Fame. He said he appreciates that more because the fans voted.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to mention it, yeah. I'm talking about Rodney Harrison.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Rodney Harrison, I was thinking about putting him as a Charger, but then I realized, his prime years were with the Patriots, and he is going to the Patriots Hall of Fame, so, yeah. He's a Patriot. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time All-Pro. Now, granted, 2 of those All-Pro years, he didn't make a Pro Bowl. So basically, that's a de facto 4-time Pro Bowler for me. He was one of the best safeties in the game. He's had tons of records. I mean, for instance, look at this. In 1997, he became the very first player in NFL history to score touchdowns on an interception return, a fumble return, and a kickoff return the same season. Out of all the defensive backs in NFL history, he has 30.5 sacks. He also, in the 2004 playoffs, had 4 interceptions, which paved the way right for the Patriots to win their 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. He is also one of 12 players in the history of the game to have 20 interceptions and 20 sacks for his career. There's only some of these other guys. Some of them are in the Hall of Fame. Some of them are not. some of them have a good chance, like Rodney Barber and London Fletcher, and Leroy Butler, and soon to be Charles Woodson. He's also the biggest one, I think, that cements him as a guy that deserves it, is because there's only 2 players ever in the history of the game with 30 interceptions and 30 sacks. The only other guy to do it was Ray Lewis. Only guy to do it other than Ray Lewis.
And that's rarefied air. Once you put Ray Lewis in the conversation, you're elite.
Now, why is he not in the Hall of Fame? Well, he gets pretty sick of this too, but he hates the Hall of Fame because of the reputation that he was a dirty player. Reputation that he was a dirty player. Also, it's the reputation, the fact that, despite the fact he's a dirty player, Belichick called him one of the greatest players he ever coached, by far.
Which
and he also did
no
have
small praise.
When he had Jerry Rice, when he hit Jerry Rice, he was suspended. But what's amazing about this stuff is the same people that were complaining he's a dirty player are the same exact people that are whining and honestly just bitching, honestly. These are the people that complain all the time. Oh, my God, NFL too soft. NFL too soft. Oh, they aren't tough. These are the same people that call him dirty. So make up your mind, guys. What is it?
That's how it's only going to get worse from here.
For the Patriots, or just like thought process?
The whole thing about things are too soft. It's just going to get worse.
Honestly, I think Harrison should be in, and it's a shame too the fact that he has this resentment towards it. It's like the fans care, the voters don't, because it creates that mindset of thinking that the people that understand it the most don't care at all. And I think it's a shame that he has it. And the big thing that people look at him and say, "Oh, he couldn't stop David Tyree." Okay, and he also won 2 Super Bowls prior. So, okay, so what? So what? Who cares? He's only one of 2 players in NFL history with 30 sacks and 30 interceptions. Who gives a damn? Who cares? Who cares? The guy should be in.
All right.
And
so there's certain
guy.
Oh, you got another one. Okay, yeah. Hit me with it.
Oh no, I'm not done with Rodney Harrison. I'm not done with him.
Oh, please continue.
Rodney Harrison is a guy that he feels he's been wronged, and honestly, with the way that his reputation was, I can't blame him. I want that to be shed. I don't want a player like that to have that with him before he dies. I don't want people to feel like people was weighing down by reputation, and I really do feel bad for him. And I just want people to be more vocal about it. And luckily, he's vocal about it. He's pretty pissed off, and that's why he feels it's more meaningful for him than the actual Hall of Fame, because fans voted on it. And I feel very, very mixed when it comes to fans voting on it, because, not fans aren't usually the ones that know the most about history. But at the same time, I kind of question how many people that vote sometimes question how much they know about it or care about it. So that's just a personal thing. Do I think they do? Yes. But sometimes there's that thought that many people have. But I don't want Harrison to have this thing when he's dead. I really don't. I want him to. I feel like he really does need a reevaluation. I really do.
I hear you about fan votes. I'm very conflicted on it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Now, it's a similar situation. Like he started his career in '94, ended in 2008. It's the same thing with Reuben Brown. The same thing with Jeff Saturday. He started his career in the middle of the decade, and he ended his career just before another decade was over. And he's not on the All-Decade team. Granted, John Lynch isn't, but the guy that's on the All-Decade team is not making it by any stretch of the imagination. Not because he wasn't a good player. No, it's just because. Is it okay if I say it?
Go ahead.
He raped 16 women.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, at least with Jim Trier, you can make a bit of an argument that he had like some stuff going on. And maybe there was other issues going on as well. But for Darren Sharper, hell no. So
yeah, I mean, especially in the Me Too generation, and now with Sharper, it's Me Too, 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 Me Too. Well, bad joke, I know, but it's accurate. And Sharper wasn't a lock anyway.
Yeah, he wasn't a lock anyway. He was always in the middle. But for Harrison, he's a pretty good replacement, I would say. And this is a guy that, got it wronged in a sense. Whereas with Sharper, he did it to himself. Harrison didn't. Harrison was wronged. Yeah. Sharper killed it for himself. That's why I think Harrison definitely deserves a very serious look. But now that's modern era Patriots that are on the ballot. Now, what about the ones that are coming up? There's 3 guys.
Oh, they're loaded. It's absolutely loaded.
Rob Gronkowski, he's going to get in.
Yep.
He's not going to be in first ballot. Some people said, he's going to be first ballot. No.
I agree. I agree with you. He won't
be. I think he's going to be third ballot because the length of his career. And it's the same situation. Like, we should always pay attention. Like, if with Setback and some of these other guys, shorter careers, they were extremely dominant. Setback, I want it because of that. Gronkowski, same thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And with other guys, same situation. Short careers, but extremely dominant. Gronkowski fits that bill as well. And, I feel like, Gronkowski definitely deserves a look, and so do these other guys. But Gronkowski, he was the best tight end in the league when he was healthy. Now, he wasn't healthy a lot, but when he was, easily the best player. Easily. He was so fun to watch. He was a joy to see. There was nothing. He was easily the most exciting player on that team.
And he's going to come back. He's not retired.
Oh, I don't think he's going to be retired for it. No, I think it's going to be like Jason Witten, where he's going to maybe wait a year or maybe half a year and come back. I don't see him retiring forever. I don't. And I hope he does. Now, we're talking about a fun guy on offense. What about a fun guy on defense? How about a big guy, big belly, personality, and just a monster? Vince Wilfork. Yes, we're going there where I'm even one of my own people that have the same first name.
Okay. No, I'm just actually, this is more like self-deprecating because there are no Kirk athletes other than Kirk Mueller. I can't think Kirk Gibson. Are there any others?
Kirk Cousins doesn't count?
But Kirk Cousins, no, he doesn't count. He sucks.
Yeah. $84 million guaranteed.
Yeah, his bank account doesn't suck. But Vince, and the thing is, that was always one of my favorite players. Also, just even the way he sort of stood up for his wife that one time.
Wilfork?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what player that was. It was a former teammate, and he signed with the Texans. And I can't remember that guy's name. Either way, the dummy went on to the radio show, and he fell for the bait. So who's the ugliest player wife?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So that's what he said. And then in typical Vince fashion, his response was on Twitter. I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember it exactly. I'll have to look it up. I see all and I know all, motherfucker.
Well, I love Vince. Vince Wilfork. He was drafted the year the Patriots won their 3rd Super Bowl, and his career ended with the Patriots with a Super Bowl 49 victory. And then he also played 2 seasons with the Texans, but he's a Patriot.
Oh, for sure.
He's a Patriot. He is one of the best players in team history. When he was there, arguably the best defensive tackle in the league. Best nose tackle in the league. He was, granted, he may look, he's just a fat guy. No. He was fierce. 5-time Pro Bowler, also a first-team All-Pro, and a 3-time second-team All-Pro. But when Richard Seymour, not as much, but after he left, when you thought of the leader of that defense, that Belichick and Patricia had, you're looking at Vince Wilfork. He was the leader of that defense. When you thought of premier defensive player, a very Belichick kind of guy, he was Wilfork. Vince Wilfork. In that 3-4 system, he was that nose tackle that slipped in. He made the best of it. And right now, retired and whatnot, I miss him. I really do miss him. He was a very fun player to watch, and yeah. And, he also gave the Patriots their Super Bowl after they beat the Rams in probably the most boring Super Bowl I've ever seen. Honestly, I remember the last 2 Super Bowls more than I remember Super Bowl 53, if I'm being fully honest with you. Okay, and there's one more guy that's on the come up but not on the ballot, and this guy I want. Talking about strong offensive line. He's talking about a dominant offensive line. But you question yourself, okay, Patriots have a dominant offensive line, but who's their dominant offensive lineman? Because, yeah, you have Nate Solder, and you have David Andrews, and you have Trey Flowers. No one ever considers them, or Matt, no one ever considers them elite guys. But who is an elite offensive lineman? Logan Mankins, that's who. Logan Mankins was the best offensive lineman for the Patriots in their dynasty, easily. There's no question in my mind. No question on my mind at all. 7-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro once, as well as a 5-time second-team All-Pro, because honestly, I don't care. You're a 6-time All-Pro. For one of the best offensive lines in the league, and you were the best player on it, yeah, I think that's pretty good.
It's very, very good.
And I think a guy like Mankins, because the offensive line has been so dominant for the Patriots, I think Mankins would be one of 2 great options to do it. He'd be, in terms of players, he would be the absolute best, by far, person to represent it. And the thing with Mankins is because he wasn't chosen by this, but his career started in 2005 and ended in 2015. Oh, jeez. Those errors of starting in the middle of the decade and ending in the middle of the decade is why I don't think he's going to be on the all-decade team, which I think that's uncalled for. I think that's chopping up. And also, before he was drafted, the Patriots won a Super Bowl, and after he traded to the Buccaneers, the Patriots won a Super Bowl. So the argument can be made, if he was that good, how come the Patriots didn't win a Super Bowl with him? Fair enough, but they still went to 2 Super Bowls. Both of them lost against the Giants, but he still went to 2 Super Bowls. And yeah, he might have not won a Super Bowl himself, but is anyone going to argue that Nate Solder is a better player than Mankins? No.
No.
Because he wasn't. He's on the Patriots' 50th anniversary team. He is literally one of their greatest players of all time. Obviously, he's not their greatest guard of all time. That's obviously John Hanna. But if you're going to talk about a second guy, it's easily Logan Mankins.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic choice. And that's, I think, a perfect way. Are we ending the Patriots here, or are we going to the Jets now?
No, we're not ending the Patriots. It's
Sorry.
Oh
my God, I did not mean to offend you. You sounded really hurt when I suggested that.
No. But the Patriots, there's a lot of guys that deserve very serious love. Now, let's get this out of the way. Brady's making it. Okay, next guy. Tom Brady's making the Hall of Fame, people. I know that's a big shock to everyone. I understand 6 Super Bowls. I know that's not good enough. I also know that having the most amount of Pro Bowls of all time, not good enough. I understand, 3 MVPs and, playing at the age of going to be 42. I understand that's not good enough, but I'm sorry, but he's going to make the Hall of Fame. You got to deal with it. But, he's an okay player, right?
He's He's okay. His wife's not bad looking either.
No, he's at a pretty good house, and he has a TV show. He's doing okay.
Yeah.
He's not. He's only he's only considered probably the greatest player of all time in many circles. I think he's okay. I don't know.
He's all right. He's all right.
I don't know. He's okay.
He's no Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah, he's definitely no Drew Bledsoe. Yeah. Definitely not Drew Bledsoe. I mean, who cares? I mean, who needs Super Bowl wins and Pro Bowls and accolades and being one? No. Bledsoe, obviously, yeah, that's definitely the guy that I definitely see more. I'm just fucking with you. Obviously Brady's made. He's one of the greatest players in NFL history. There's no question. As soon as he retires, if he retires, he'll make it like that. Like literally, like faster than the blink of an eye, he'll make the Hall of Fame. And we know that the entire team's going to be there. And I mean, he's already worshipped as the god in Boston. I actually went there once before the 2016 season. There were actually stands that had a bunch of free Brady T-shirts. So he'll that's basically okay. Next, so who's next? Well, it's Matthew Slater.
Okay.
Now, why Matthew Slater? He's also a special teamer, but unlike he's actually a gunner, which is really undervalued. But 3-time Super Bowl champion, 7-time Pro Bowler, a 5-time All-Pro on one of the greatest teams in history, probably the greatest dynasty in NFL history. And it might partially be because of blood. In fact, he's Jackie Slater's son. Jackie Slater, in fact, as we all know, played with the Rams for 20 seasons and is considered one of the greatest offensive linemen in history and actually made a first ballot. As for Matt Slater, he is so good that Bill Belichick said he would have an entire 53-man roster full of Matt Slaters. That, I think, is his biggest calling card. The fact that Belichick said that he'd be willing to have an entire team made with just clones of him. He doesn't even say that about Brady.
Well, if anyone can figure out a way to cheat and make that happen, it's Bill Belichick.
Oh yeah, I think if anyone would find a way to clone players, it would most likely be him. Because I remember watching a Bleacher Report video of Gridiron Heights where Bill Belichick was like a scientist and he had a bunch of players that he was being created. Like it said Malcolm Butler would actually listen to me. Another white wide receiver, a new Nate Solder. I thought that was pretty funny. But in all seriousness, Slater, when arguably the greatest coach of all time, is saying that he would want an entire team based on just you. I mean, come on. Is there an easier way of saying he deserves it than that?
That you can't get higher praise than from Belichick. Whether you love the guy or not, you got to respect him. You have to.
You need to. Now, I'm going to go another one. Now, I know he gets a lot of hate recently, but those people don't know what they're talking about. There's a reason why he's been with the team ever since Vinatieri left. There's a reason as to why he's considered one of the top of his position. There's a reason why he's been here for so long. There's a reason why I think Stephen Gostkowski belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's because, yes, I gave it away, Stephen Gostkowski. Now, why do I want Stephen Gostkowski in the Hall of Fame? You might be saying, why would you want Stephen Gostkowski? He missed a couple kicks in the Super Bowl. Okay, they still won those Super Bowls. The only exception was 52, and they still could have won that game. Now, again, why would I want Gostkowski? Well, he's literally. It feels like ever since Vinatieri left, it feels like they didn't skip a beat because Gostkowski has that factor of coming up clutch in many situations. In fact, he had a record of 523 extra points converted. Think about that. 523 extra points he converted in a row. Say that one more time.
523 points in a row.
In a row.
In a row.
In fact, he's the second player in NFL history to score 500 points in his first 4 seasons in the league. And the very first to score 1,000 points in his first 8 seasons in the league. And this is despite the fact that he missed the entire 2010 season with a leg injury. He also holds the average for the highest average points per game over a career, which is 8.75 points per game at the end of the 2015 season. And he is the first player since the merger, since 1970, to lead the league in scoring in more than 2 consecutive seasons. From 2012 to 2015, he led the league in scoring. He also led the league in scoring in 2008. So that's 5 times he led the entire NFL in scoring. He's also the Patriots' all-time leading scorer, surpassing Vinatieri. There's a reason why he was re-signed. Because he's just that good. I understand in recent years he hasn't been the same that he was. But guess what? Those games that they won, like in Super Bowl 53, yes, he missed the field goal. But guess what? He kicked the field goal that clinched the win for them.
Yeah, I'm actually, I really have a lot of respect for Gostkowski. So it wasn't a name I thought you were going to bring up, but I don't know that he's necessarily done enough yet. And being a kicker, it's so hard. I know a lot of people say Vinatieri is a first ballot. I don't think he is, frankly. Not because,
no, he's not. I mean,
not because. I don't
think he's a first ballot.
And it's not because I disrespect Adam Vinatieri. Yes, because of his position. And it's not that I'd even have a problem with it. I wouldn't. But kickers don't go first ballot. They just don't.
Now, if you think Gostkowski's big, wait till you get to part 4, where I might get a little bit too animated with that one. But I won't mention his name. But I will. Let's just say that let's just say for him, they need to cut the narratives and just remember that it's only one kick and not every single kick matters. That's all I'm going to say with that guy. But that's a tease for that. That's a tease for part 4. But as for Gostkowski, who cares if he missed a couple of those kicks? Because they still won those games. It's not like he sucked. There's a reason why he's been here for so long. He truly is one of the elites at his position. As much as people don't want to say it, he is. He is. Without a question, he is one of the greatest field goal kickers of all time. He is. I know that Patriots fans want to talk smack about him. Fair enough. But guess what? Who cares what they think? Gostkowski, I think, has done everything to warrant himself into serious discussion.
All right. Are we moving to your neck of the woods now?
No.
No?
Still not, actually, believe it or not. Now, obviously, but actually, I'm going to mention him for a second. Actually, a few. But I'm going to mention this guy's name for a second. It's a similar situation with Willie Mcginest, in which he's dominant during the postseason. Now, I'm going to mention this. Julian Edelman, I'm going to mention his name. Do I want him in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Now, do I think he's Hall of Fame material? No. The only way I can see him even having more of a chance, I mean, yeah, he won Super Bowl MVP, which he was great in that game. The thing that really holds him is the fact that he's always dominant in the postseason. And it's similar to like a Jim Plunkett situation where he never went to a Pro Bowl, but he always lit it up during the playoffs. And the fact that Edelman is second all-time in receiving yards, that's what people are going to look at. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if he eclipses Jerry Rice. Now, do I want Edelman? No. I don't. But, oh wait, I'm forgetting one more wide receiver. Wes Welker. How can I forget his name? How can I forget Wes Welker's name? I mean, I shouldn't, but it feels like fans have forgotten him because apparently Edelman's Hall of Fame material. Now, I kind of went a little bit over the place, but I was going to mention him after Mankins, but I just kind of forgot. But for Wes Welker, the reason why I think he is I think in terms of what he accomplished, way more than Edelman, and even far more than Morgan, because the slot position is the way it is because of Welker. And then you get some people, like some voters, that seem to think that people my age want Wes Welker in first ballot, even though I've never heard anyone say that. In fact, there's many people that question if he's even Hall of Fame material, let alone first ballot. I don't know why they keep saying that. I mean, no one's saying that. I'm not joking. like Ron Borges who used to be part of Boston Herald, he seems to keep saying that. And Clark Judge, they say that a lot. Even as much as I respect them, no one's saying that. But I do think, considering that Wes Welker always came up in the pockets, not in the pocket, he always came up in the slots, and the fact that, I don't know, he led the league in receptions 3 times, and he was a 4-time All-Pro, and he always caught every single ball that Brady had. So it's not like he was terrible. No, he had almost 17,000 all-purpose yards from the time he retired. So I don't think that's something to be shut up about. What do you think of Welker, anyway?
I'm a huge fan, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the mix with it. I mean, with Welker, it really comes to the fact that he was dominant when he was with the Patriots. He didn't really do much with the Chargers and the Dolphins, and with the Broncos, he kind of had the concussions. And when it comes to Welker, it takes a little bit. I mean, I definitely want him far more than Edelman, but the reason why he didn't really mention his name is because I kind of forgot him because Mankins and Wilfork are much, much higher. Welker, I feel like if people stop thinking about the whole stuff with Edelman, maybe. But I don't know.
All right, so after this, when we're done here, so Edelman to me, and I don't know if you'll know this name, he's the Claude Lemieux of football.
Claude Lemieux?
Yeah. This pretty good hockey player, agitator, not in terms of like how they played, but Claude Lemieux was always a good player, never an all-star, but he would always light it up in the playoffs. His points per game went up like half a goal, like half a point more per game in the playoffs. Just everything just clicked, but not a Hall of Fame guy either.
Yeah, that actually is I think that's a pretty good comparison. He always lit it up. I do think he definitely has a better chance I definitely think that Jim Plunkett has a better chance than him, because at least with Plunkett, he has the very massive support. But even then, I question him, and for Edelman, even less so. Honestly, he's more like a Robert Horry, if anything.
Well, he's also playing a position, too, with Edelman. There's a lot of great wide receivers who are going to be ahead of him. When Edelman's finally eligible, is he even going to be in the top 20?
No. I mean, you just look at all these other Calvin Johnson. I mean, Isaac Bruce is not in yet. Torrey Holt is not in yet. Chad Johnson and Hines Ward, Sterling Sharp, and other guys coming up too, like Reggie Wayne, Calvin Johnson, Andre Johnson, Steve Smith. Does anyone think that Julian Edelman is on that level? No. No,
and he's not. He's not. He's not even a top 20 guy. It's really that cut and dry for me. I don't understand this push. Well, I mean, I do, but I don't agree with it.
If he gets first time, I'll look a little bit more into it, but I'm going to say right now, no. Now, that's it with the Patriots players. Now, I said players. Yes. There's so many people from the Patriots. I was even shocked with how many Patriots there were, and I'm a guy that's lived through this entire era. Obviously Belichick.
Mm-hmm. Kraft.
But the one I want to mention, and Kraft, yeah. Now, I'm going to mention Kraft here because Kraft is a shoo-in for me because...
Not anymore.
No, actually, I think he still is a shoo-in.
Well, they're going to have to wait a little bit, though. They could have put him in... This has to die down first.
1 or 2 years. I think 1 or 2 years. I mean, but at the same time, look at this. I don't think he had a good time and whatnot. I mean, look, he had his little fun time down in Florida in Jupiter. Sure, I understand. I understand he really loved the girls there, but.
The girl there. Hey, did you see the mugshot of the person in question?
Oh yeah, there's some. He took pictures with Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz and Ron DeSantis.
Oh my God!
Saying, oh, geez, don't tell me that. I can't. I'm thinking in my mind, did Trump do that too?
No. Trump didn't do. Okay, again, and I know this sounds so sexist saying that. There's no way Trump would sort of do anything with anyone he considered less than a 10.
That's true.
and that's, I'm not saying that Trump's probably cheated a whole of a lot, but
almost like
probably still does.
Oh yeah, I mean, Melania never looked happy there.
Well, no.
But in terms of coaches, obviously Belichick.
Yep, obviously.
But obviously, I mentioned Arnsparger, but there's another guy I want even more.
Who's that?
I mentioned Logan Mankin and how dominant that offensive line is. But the question is, who was the guy that made Nate Solder worth that much money? The answer is simple. Dante Scarnecchia. Dante Scarnecchia, when you think of coaches, other than Belichick, but if you talk about long-term Patriots, like ones that are synonymous with the Patriots, they've always been with the Patriots. The Patriots in their blood, they're in their soul. It's Dante Scarnecchia. It's easily Dante Scarnecchia. It's not even close. And he did retire a little bit, like in 13, and he said, no, doesn't care. And they beat the Patriots. Then the Patriots beat the Falcons, and then a couple years later, they beat the Rams again. He's a 5-time Super Bowl champion.
You're reaching.
He's 71, and
no,
honestly,
I hear your point, but I mean, he's not even a lock for the Patriots Hall of Fame.
I don't know, man. I mean, a lot of Patriots fans do like. Patriots fans do like him,
but it's no, and I get your point. I totally do, but we'll never see that day.
You don't think so? I don't know, man.
Never.
Like, I really do want. I really want Scarnecchia because I understand he was never a coordinator, but honestly, something has to be said about the guy that's the offensive line coach. If you construct an offensive line that's been so dominant for so long with a team like the Patriots, you already have my respect. And he wasn't just an offensive line coach. He was also a special assistant, too, for many years, as well as a defensive assistant and a tight end coach and a special teams coach. He is literally, when you talk about Patriots that are synonymous with the teams people that are synonymous with the Patriots for their entire life, it's Scarnecchia. And I look at it myself and I say, Scar deserves it. I understand it might be a little bit tough, but I think the fans would want Scarnecchia. I really do think they would, because there's something to be said about a guy that's been around for that long. And as for the Hall of Fame, yes, I understand it might be a little. I don't know. I really do. I really, really, really like. There's very, very few reallys that I would want, but Scarnecchia, because he's in that position where it's a little bit not as looked on. Like, you're an offensive line coach, you're not a coordinator, but come on, like.
Well, stranger things have happened, but this won't.
Stranger things. Am I betting on Scarnecchia being to the Hall of Fame?
Don't.
No, but I don't. But honestly, I think expect someone like me, I don't know, to go full force when he retires. Because if you think that I'm not going to go full force with Scarnecchia, you don't know who I am.
And I hear what you're saying. Man, that's going to be a hard one.
Is this because he's an offensive line coach?
Yeah, that's exactly why I think that. And again, it's sort of the same thing why, like a really good kicker struggles to get in, or when Shane Leckler, who we talked about before.
I want Leckler badly.
So, yeah, and I know we've talked about him before. It's not necessarily his contributions; it's the perceived position and what that entails. And if a guy like Don Coryell can't get in right now.
The good thing about having players more vocal is because it lets people look at that player a little bit more. And with someone like me, I don't have that perceived notion that others do. Others do, but honestly, I have no problem blowing that notion right in front of their face.
Sure, but until they sort of change the way their structure, and sort of like look at types of contributors like that. Right now, the way the Pro Football Hall of Fame is at this point, it's just not happening.
Right now, no. I think, in the future, if there's more of a push like with me, yes, I could. But right now, no. Want list is, in terms of wants, he's like top 10. In terms of likeliness, not as much.
Wow. Okay, I would. Okay.
And then in terms of Patriots themselves, there is one more Patriot I want to mention, but he also had some stuff with the Cowboys too. Bucko Kilroy. He has been an executive. Obviously, he was a player for the Eagles. He also made the 1940s All-Decade team as well as a Pro Bowler 3 times. But what made him a heavy a person that's been heavily considered for the Hall of Fame is the fact that what he's done for the game. He was the guy that helped create the way the NFL drafted. When he was with the Cowboys, he was credited as the founder of the modern-day NFL draft, and as an executive, he also helped fashion the way the Super Bowl is today. And then he took it to the Patriots, where he was where he was an executive from 1971 to 2007.
So this one you got a shot with.
Yes, I think Kilroy has a much larger shot than Scarnecchia. Even though I want Scarnecchia, Kilroy, there are discussions. I think other 3 guys that were considered, other than Bolin and Brandt, were George Young, Steve Sable, Art McNally, and Bucko Kilroy. And Bucko Kilroy, the fact that he made the draft the way it is today, yeah. In fact, he was, obviously.
That one I think you got a really good shot at. Tell me now we're moving to New Jersey with your Jets.
We are finally done with the Patriots.
Okay. Oh my God.
Okay, before I get to that, I just want to say I did not expect this. And it's so much to a point that I honestly think that in a few years the Patriots are going to be like how the Broncos are in terms of their browbeating and like respect or perceived respect. I see that same situation with the Broncos fans that I see that same thing happen with the Patriots, especially considering that many Patriots fans have a very, very immense paranoia for some reason. Some of it justified, but a lot of it's just kind of just insanity at its finest. But I do think that is going to happen with the Patriots. That's why I wouldn't be shocked if a good chunk of these guys make it, because dominant success, but respect in the eyes of people in Boston. If you don't put enough in, then you don't respect them. That's why you need to respect them.
Patriots fans never change.
Oh, actually I do, but I know. But actually I think it would be good because it would help push these guys in. Now, but that's enough talking about the Patriots. I never talked about the Patriots more in my life. Now, here we go. We're going local here, finally. The New York Jets. Jets. The Jets. We're talking about the Jets, finally.
Not Fireman Ed. I hate that guy.
What do you have against Fireman Ed?
I don't know. There's just... You ever have just somebody that you just can't stand and you don't really know why? That's Fireman Ed for me.
Is it his outfits?
It's just, I don't know. There's just something about that guy that I feel about him every time I see Drake in the Raptors games. Like, it's just always like, get off my fucking TV, you fucking douche. Pardon my language. That's really how I feel.
But he's the face of the Raptors.
Yeah. Doesn't mean I want to see him there.
Tough. Okay, now for the Jets. Now, when you talk about the Jets, you think of their 1968 Super Bowl win, Super Bowl III.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, you think of just a mess. But what if I were to tell you that there actually have been good players for the Jets since then?
Absolutely. Well, there definitely have been, for sure.
Well, yeah. Because just because you're a bad team for so long, and just because you have the stigma of being, they've been bad, doesn't mean you don't have good players. Now, should I start with the AFL guys? Should I mention the one that everyone's mentioning?
However you want to do it. If you want to go chronological, that's fine. If you want to go with the big names first, that's fine too.
Okay, let's talk about the AFL guys. Winston Hill. Winston Hill is my most wanted offensive lineman from the AFL. In fact, Winston Hill, from my understanding, is one of the most discussed in the Hall of Fame room. In fact, after Johnny Robinson, from what I've heard, the one they're going to go right to afterwards is Winston Hill. Now, why Winston Hill, especially? Well, Winston Hill is one of those guys that Reuben Brown was in. He's one of the few players. Actually, take it back. He actually has 8 Pro Bowls, not 9, but he has 8 Pro Bowls, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. He's also a 6-time All-Pro and won the Super Bowl with the Jets, and not in. He's also part of the AFL's all-time team. In fact, he's second team. He's the only two that are more is Ron Mix, who is in, and Jim Schreier, who might never make it. But Winston Hill, I can see a genuine push for him. And in fact, the recognition that he has is that he did make the Hall of Very Good in 14. He also was one of the very first members of the Jets Ring of Honor, along with Weave Eubanks, Curtis Martin, Don Maynard, Joe Namath, and one other guy I'll mention in a little bit. But Winston Hill, they chose those 6 guys. He was one of those 6 people. And him and that one other guy are the only 2 not in. And with Hill, I personally think the fact that he was such a dominant offensive lineman for so long, opening up gaping holes for the running backs for his entire time there, yeah. He played a massive role in having that Super Bowl win.
Yeah, and that's a great place to start, for sure.
And obviously, Jets fans may not mention him as much, but as someone who knows the game like I do, Winston Hill, I think, is the perfect place to start. There's another AFL guy, too. Larry Grantham.
Interesting, okay.
Now, why do I mention Larry Grantham? Well, he did win a Super Bowl, of course. 5-time AFL All-Star. Look at this. A 10-time All-AFL. 10-time All-AFL. 10 times. 5 first team, 5 second team. And like I said, All-AFL are the same thing as All-Pros, and AFL All-Stars are the same thing as All-Pros. So essentially, the guy has a de facto 10 Pro Bowls. Think about that for a second. A guy that basically has 10 Pro Bowls is not in the Hall of Fame yet.
That's a lot.
What?
No, that's a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to argue that one.
He only missed 3 starts, so it tells you how dominant he was and how durable he was and how willing and tough he was. 13 years with the Jets, only missing 3 starts. And the Jets defense was a big reason as to why they won that game. And the question is, who exactly was the person that was leading that Jets defense? It was Larry Grantham. Easily it was Larry Grantham. And in terms of linebackers, he's easily the second best one. He's easily the best one at the AFL that's not in. And it's not even close. It's him and everyone else. The fact that he's had this much in, and it seems like not as much attention, is appalling. The guy deserves it. Not as much as Hill, but Grantham. The quarterback of that defense was Larry Grantham. 10-time All-Pro.
But the ones
what more do I have to say?
No, there's nothing more you need to say on that one. But that's not the ones that they talk about the most, and I think we know which 2 they are. So I really want your take on Gastineau and Klecko.
I'm going to talk about Gastineau first, even though I think that, I'm going to talk about Klecko first, because more fans are mentioning his name.
Actually, they do. Klecko's actually risen up our site in terms of ranking more than anyone else. The only other one who went up higher in the last few years is Nobis.
Nobis, I'm going to mention his name, and I'm going to, like I told you about how I also really like the Falcons.
Yep.
Yeah, there's literally a 0.00000. There's literally a 0% chance I'm not going to mention Nobis. I will mention Nobis' name in the future. Now, the question is, why exactly Kluwe? Well, actually, he's so discussed for the Hall of Fame that on his Wikipedia page, he's an entire section dedicated to his Hall of Fame credentials, which actually made it a little bit easier for me to, research him. Joe DeLamielleure said, this is what he said in quotes, "You can't think of his 10-year period without him. I had to watch Joe Green and Merlin Olsen when I was playing, and I believe, to me, Kluwe was equal to two of those guys. If Kluwe had played in one position for 10 years, he'd have been considered one of the top 2 players or 3 players in his position. Whichever one it was. He's been another player who went to the Pro Bowl at 3 different positions. You take a defensive end and put him at nose tackle, he's just as good as there. That's a great player. We need Joe Kluwe in the Hall of Fame." Yes, I will mention this. Joe Kluwe, what makes him special, the fact he was a Pro Bowler, 3 different positions, defensive end, defensive tackle, and nose tackle. No one else has that. No one else. In terms of All-Pro, same deal. 3 different positions, and he was equally as dominant. It doesn't matter the position, he was just as dominant. I mean, that's what sets him apart from everyone else. But it's not like he didn't have any hardware. Oh, no. He had hardware. In 1981, which was his best season in the league, he won the AFC Defensive Player of the Year, the Pro Football Writers Association Defensive Player of the Year, and also the Newspaper Enterprise Association NFL Defensive Player of the Year. So that year, clean sweep Defensive Player of the Year in the AFC. So, yeah, I think that's pretty big. Also, I was mentioning the Jets Ring of Honor. That one other guy, other than Winston Hill, that was on the Jets' very first list was Joe Kluwe. In fact, Kluwe is one of 5 guys to have his number retired by the team. The only other guys that have had their number retired by the team were Dennis Byrd, who's there because his career ended prematurely due to a car accident, Joe Namath, of course, the Jet of all Jets, Don Maynard, the greatest wide receiver in Jets history, and Curtis Martin. Joe Kluwe, but basically Dennis Byrd was more of an honor than anything. In terms of Jets circles, I asked Jets fans, who is the best Jets player not in the Hall of Fame? Every single one of them says to me, Joe Kluwe. Easily, it's Joe Kluwe. But the question I have is simple. Kluwe is great and all, but he was not the face of that famed defense.
Mm-hmm.
Still there?
Yeah, no, I'm here, yep.
He was not the face of that defense.
No, he wasn't. Gastineau was. And I remember, too, because because again, I'm older than dirt, but Gastineau was not just a defensive star. He was a star. Everyone knew who he was.
He was literally he was a star. He made the NFL All-Decade team in the 1980s. He also was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, 2-time sacks leader, was also the All-AFC, as well as he was also Defensive Player of the Year, NEA Defensive Player of the Year, as well as the All-AFC Defensive Player of the Year in 1984, and as part of the Jets Ring of Honor. But he also broke the sack record, as we all know. He broke Coy Bacon's sack record. And this was a bit of a time when he was coming into an era in which they were finally making sacks an official statistic.
Mm-hmm.
He's easily one of the greatest pass rushers of all time. But the question comes, if he was so good, and he has all this stuff in front of him, how come Jets fans mention Joe Kluwe's name more than Mark Gastineau if Gastineau was the face of that team? Now, in terms of a fit... What?
No, I'm here. Go on.
But in terms of official sacks, 74. But in terms of unofficial, 107 and a half. So all the stuff in front of him, all decades, Defensive Player of the Year, multi-time All-Pro, Pro Bowler, broke the sack record. The question comes, why, if that's the case, then why is Joe Kluwe more talked about? Now, one person says how he's good in multiple positions. his effectiveness and how it didn't matter the position, he was still dominant in his variety, and also because of what's the word I'm thinking about?
Versatility.
Versatility. His versatility. The fact that he was versatile.
Mm-hmm.
Gastineau they saw as, he was a sack. Some could say, he was a pass rusher, but yet he was one of the premier sack pass rushers. But I think there's a bit of a deeper reason as to why Gastineau, and honestly, it's because of who he was as a person. It's because he was more of a glitz and glamour kind of guy.
Well, Klecko's your lunch pail guy who his foray into Hollywood was his fine acting performance in the Cannonball Run. I strongly encourage anyone to watch that. And Gastineau is an Eskimo brother with Flavor Flav.
But why? But here's the thing: why is particularly is Gas? Why? But other than versatility, I think there's something even deeper as to why Gastineau is not as popular as Klecko, because Jets fans always mention Klecko's name. They always mention Klecko's name, but they don't mention Gastineau's name as much. And why do you think that's the reason?
I know. I honestly think it goes back to that whole Hollywood thing. New York is, well, you know better than I. There's just something about sort of like the working man ethos that Klecko had that Gastineau didn't. Gastineau also had his little dance too that either rubs you the wrong way or you love it. And, there was a few things character-wise where you looked at Mark Gastineau back in the day where you just didn't want to like the guy. Klecko, he was the guy you want to throw a beer, throw a beer down with. Gastineau, you want to throw a beer on.
But how many people could really say that now that he has colon cancer?
Well, they can't. They can't now, and nor should they, and they probably shouldn't have then. It's also back at a time where now like almost all the athletes do act like rock stars because they're getting paid like that and they can act like that. Gastineau was doing that when a lot of people weren't, and sometimes they have a long memory but they forget why it was they disliked someone in the first place.
With Mark Gastineau, I mean, obviously, I think because of versatility, Klecko has him over Gastineau, but not by much. Because of what Gastineau did, and the fact that he was the face of the Jets during that time, even though Klecko was the guy they wanted to have a beer with, there's no question that the face of that defense, but that entire team, was Mark Gastineau. And I don't think that's not even a question. Not a question at all. Now, granted, one could also say because he was also one of the guys that held up the picket sign during the NFL players' strike. But guess what? There's going to be a strike in 2020. So it doesn't matter that much to me at all. In fact, it doesn't mean anything to me. But, the fact that Gastineau was one of the original, the OG premier pass rushers, I think people should not forget him.
No, they shouldn't. And again, we're talking about two guys who I believe neither of them were finalists ever.
No. I think Klecko might have been one. I'm not too sure. But Klecko was heavily discussed.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. But Gastineau never. Nor does his name even really ever come up still. And I don't quite understand it. But
I don't understand it at all. I think it's absolutely appalling. And honestly, it makes me wonder, hey, as Jets fans, you know who the face of that team was during Klecko's time there, right? You do know that. You're the Jets fan. You should know this. And I'm not hating on Klecko here. I think Klecko absolutely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think he's and I think because of his versatility alone, it's more deserving than Gastineau. But don't forget Gastineau, people. I mean, I understand Klecko got his number retired. I understand he was the first guy for the Ring of Honor. And I think that's probably also a reason as to why. But and also, it doesn't help that, considering in New York, you have a lot of those old dinosaurs as well that always hate people with quote-unquote personality.
And I think that sort of ties it up right there. It's not an easy place to play for, or a city to play in. Ask Randy Johnson how well it worked out for him. Not too well.
And that's why I say, who cares? I'm going to mention Mark Gastineau anyway, because it's all these older New York people, which in terms of what they're talking about sports, it feels like it's getting worse and worse by the day. I mean, as much as I remember Mike Francesa, he's just been getting, oh my God. Like, it's a mess watching that. I mean, I like him as a guy, but at the same time, he's up there in age. Jeez. And, these personality, I absolutely hate when people mention the whole thing with personality, because the whole thing with personality, the whole BS with personality is why it took a while for Terrell Owens. And we know how much of a PR disaster it was there. Can you imagine if Mark Gastineau was in the era of today and they had this stuff, they would be calling for their heads. But because Gastineau played in that era where it was more taboo, it wasn't as accepting as it is now. That's why people don't talk about it as much. But for me, I don't forget.
Oh, look at the Baseball Hall of Fame, one of the biggest assholes on the planet ever, with Ty Cobb.
Jeez, gross. Like, there's one type of sports writers that I can't stand. It's baseball writers, because they're probably many of them tends to be so much of the biggest gatekeepers on the planet, and I hate that mentality. And fortunately, basketball does not have that. Football is finally pushing in that direction where it's finally acceptable, but baseball is nothing but bad things to say about that situation. Personality does not matter that much to me. I care about how you are on the football field, not how you are in the locker room.
So a little bit. Yeah, we should probably move on, see what other Jets we got. The one that sticks out in my mind is Darrelle Revis.
Darrelle Revis was the best corner of his day. Mm-hmm. He easily was. He's most likely going to be on the All-Decade team. And there's no question in my mind. There's easily no question in my mind that Darrelle Revis will make it. He's not going to make it first out, because at the end of his career, but I definitely see no worse than fourth out.
Yeah, I agree. I'd agree with that. The other Jet I really like of recent days, I'm really curious on your take, Nick Mangold.
Yes, absolutely. There was no way I was not going to mention his name. Underrated during his time. One of the best centers in the league. During his heyday, it's the same situation with Logan Mankins. Same situation with the Reuben Brown. It's the same situation of you start your career in the middle of one decade and you end your career in the middle of another decade. And I hate that.
That will hurt, because there's a lot of people who just look at that. They shouldn't, but they do.
Well, I don't. I'm not that kind of guy.
No, you're not.
And Alan Cruz is okay, but Mangold has far more on his plate than Alan Cruz. But the reason why Cruz is on there is because he played for the entire 2000 decade. Mangold had more All-Pros and more Pro Bowls, but he didn't make, and him and Jeff Saturday didn't make the All-Decade team. And I want Mangold and I want Saturday really, really badly. Probably more so Mangold because, I think more so Mangold because I'm from New York. I grew up with watching Mangold play. I always thought that he deserved a lot of attention. And I always liked Mangold because he was a big leader on that team, on the offense. No matter the quarterback, whether it was Greg McElroy, Mark Sanchez, or even Geno Smith, or Ryan Fitzpatrick, or Chad Pennington, didn't matter who the quarterback was. Same thing with Joe Thomas. Doesn't matter who the quarterback was. But one thing you can always expect is Nick Mangold would always be there, and he always was there. He always was there. And I feel like it might take. I think Saturday would take first, but I think it might take a while for Mangold. But the one thing I admire with the Jets fans is that they know they want Klecko, and there's two players like Klecko that have this much of a massive fan push for one guy. There's only a few others that I can see that are similar to that. Pat Bolin, Tom Flores, Steve Atwater, and a couple others. I'll mention his name in a bit later, but Roman Gabriel is also another one, but I'll mention his name. There's no way I won't mention his name. down the road. But the way that Jets fans are with Klecko, I think that's a good thing because it shows that Jets fans know about their history, they embrace it, and they still go forward. Because there's many other teams that kind of crouch up in a bubble, crouch in like a sit. They kind of sit with their hands, with their knees up, curled up into a ball, and they kind of cower a little bit. Whereas Jets fans, they want Klecko, and they're going to let you know they want Klecko. And while if you were to act like Falcons fans, they're very, very quiet about wanting Tommy Novus. For other teams, let's say the Buffalo Bills, yeah, they want Tasker, but you don't really see them really demand Tasker. Jets fans are demanding Joe Klecko. Raiders fans are demanding Tom Flores. That's why I think after Klecko, I really do believe that Jets fans would be willing to push for another guy. I just see it in them. And I think that's a great, great thing to have in a fan base. That they're willing to defy all odds and just go straight towards it. And I do believe that the Patriots fans, once Brady retires, they're going to be, like I said, they're going to be like Raiders and Broncos fans level of like intensity and then browbeating. And I appreciate it a lot from the Jets. Now, granted, this could also be a bit of bias because I'm from New York. But
nothing wrong with a little bias. I've got a lot of that myself with New Orleans.
Yeah, I mean, but I do. But like I really do appreciate how the Jets fans have been with Joe Klecko. Now, granted, I do also want to mention Gastineau and Hill and Grantham, but in fact, they're rallying around one guy, and it's not like they're rallying around like Marty Lyons or like Wayne Corbett or anything like that. They're rallying around a guy who was known for his versatility, and many people want in.
Are we missing anyone else from the Jets? From Gang Green?
Sometimes I do wonder when I watch Jets if it's actually gangrene or if they're as bad as getting infected with gangrene. Which is funny considering that your extremities turn black if that happens, not green. But the Jets do now have black on their uniform, so go figure, I guess.
Okay, the Cleveland Browns helmet isn't brown.
Yes, I do like the new Jets uniforms. Even though they look a little bit like the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I will mention that. But honestly, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what they were going for, too.
It's a cool uniform. I think that some people say, oh, why did they change the classic Jets design? Well, it's simple. The classic Jets design was too plain. The classic Jets design kind of looked like, really, you're holding on to this? I like this.
I kind of like the new Jets uniform. Actually, you bring up the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I guess now living in the Caribbean, I will not be seeing any CFL anymore.
You know what? Well, you don't want to see I don't know much about the CFL. What I will say, the AFC East, that went on for like 2 hours.
2 hours. I think the only one that's going to go longer will be the NFC North.
Oh, there's a few of them. And AFC North might be a little long too, but not as long. But it might be a bit long.
Yeah, so let's agree. We're doing that one next. So we might as well keep up the AFC.
North,
yeah, I mean, well, also, Baltimore, there's not much to talk there.
Well, actually, there is a couple. Now, for a couple, but there's going to be, obviously, for the AFC North, there's going to be one team that's obviously going to have the most.
For sure.
But there's also pockets of a few others that are willing to talk about as well. In fact, one of them.
All right. But we have to make a deal. We got to keep it under 2 hours. If we can.
I will say this. No promises.
No promises. Well, I appreciate that. Well, Vinny, as always, it's been great. Let's do this again in a couple weeks.
Oh, I am pumped. Also, with school almost over, I'm gonna have more time to do this. I'm also gonna have more time looking at resume and whatnot. I'm gonna be doing a lot of stuff during the summer, and I literally cannot wait. And as for the AFC, this was a long time coming, and I'm really happy that I was willing to get this through. And in total, look at it, I was shocked with the amount of Bills there were, and I was even more shocked with the amount of Patriots there were. And I'm hopeful that with what I've been doing, it's going to change some of those notions that people have had for special teamers and AFL players, and of course, personalities. So I do think those times are finally changing a bit. Now, granted, this could be a bit of optimism, but I truly do see that. I really do.
And that's all we can do, just be agents of change. All right, I'm looking forward to it, so enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll chat in a couple weeks.
Well, speaking to you, Kirk, have a great day.
All right, take care.